David Ross hit a home run in Game 7. That was something that I think I'll remember for the rest of my life. Game 7 to me is still kind of a blur just because so much happened and so much went on and so much stress. And I know the Ross home run was before the Indians came back and tied it, and before the rain delay or whatever, but it was just such a cool moment. The fact that he hit a home run, I don't know if you saw on the broadcast, they had him mic'd up, and he hit the home run, and he didn't even celebrate going around the bases. He was just completely silent, kind of taking it all in, and that's just a really cool moment for me.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I had just written about it earlier today, and I didn't even know this going into it, but I was recapping some of the stats from the entire postseason, not just any one series. And with the minimum of 20 plate appearances, David Ross actually had the highest OPS of anyone on the Cubs. He only had 20 plate appearances, so obviously Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Dexter Fowler, those guys did a little bit more damage, but in the limited time he was there, he made a lot happen, and it is really great. I mean, this season alone, his last season, he hit 100 home runs, caught a no-hitter, won the World Series with the Cubs, and hit a home run in Game 7. We joke about you can't beat that or you can't beat this, but that really might be unbeatable. I mean, his last few games were probably some of the most memorable games of baseball of his really long career. And there's nothing that really I can't imagine a lot of players. I mean, like David Ortiz had a huge last season, but I still can't imagine it holds a candle to what Ross just went through.
You want to go out a winner. You want to go out basically riding off into the sunset, and that's what David Ross did. And just it made this season 10 times better with him a part of this team, and he'll be missed for sure. Another guy that could possibly be leaving the Cubs is Dexter Fowler. Do you think there are any chances that he is re-signed?
Well, so Dexter Fowler is an interesting one to talk about. Obviously, the reason I always have pause about talking about him is because last season this was almost the exact same question. We had all but guaranteed that, or he had all but guaranteed that he had priced himself out of the Cubs range. Not that they couldn't financially manage signing him to a longer deal, but given their other needs, it wasn't necessarily the best use of resources. But it looks like, again, he may have done the same thing. He might have actually priced himself out of the Cubs range. And given the far superior free agent market last year, he's looking, I saw, and I can't remember which publication it was, but he was ranked as the second best available free agent behind Yoenis Cespedes. So, he's still pretty young, and I wouldn't be surprised for a team to give him a 5-year deal. And given the Cubs' other options right now, there's no question that, let's say, next year he would be an improvement in center field over probably anyone who played there, just given his unique skill set, his ability to lead off. I just am not sure the Cubs are going to go back in that direction as much as they would like to have him back. I have a feeling that, one, Jason Hayward's going to play a lot more center field next year, and two, that he'll be a lot better offensively. There's no more excuses. I get joked around a lot because I'm constantly defending Hayward, and I'm not defending that he's actually doing well, or that he's, the turn is just around the corner. But I still think that you can't discount 6.5 years of people, it's so hard because so few people want to believe this, but he was a well above average offensive performer for 6 seasons from when he was 20 to 26. He had one bad year, and unfortunately it was with the Cubs. He had a couple other years that were slightly down, but he's almost always the above average hitter with that Gold Glove defense in right field. So I'm not ready to give up on him. And if his defense in center field, I'm fairly confident that it is just as good, if not better, than Fowler in center would be. And if he can just come back a little bit to the guy he was, not even tap into the potential that we know exists on the high end, but just become the guy he was, he's a extremely valuable center fielder. So is Fowler coming back? I'm guessing no, but last year I said the same thing. And, obviously everyone was surprised with the way he returned in spring training, but I can't imagine he's going to do it again. I think someone's going to give him the years and money he probably deserves. And I think the Cubs should be happy to get the best 2 seasons of his career by far out of him. And again, that's the other thing. Dexter Fowler's best 2 seasons were these last 2, and this last one was by far his best. This is not the level of play that he was used to before coming to the Cubs. And, it's great. And it looks like it's sustainable because he's got a great approach at the plate. But I don't think you could expect him to be a 4.5+ win player for the next 5 years. That said, I would love to have him back if it was possible. I'm all about Dexter Fowler. He exemplifies the approach the Cubs try to teach their young hitters, selective aggression. He takes pitches, and he's perfectly steady in center field. So, no, but I would like it.
Yeah, same here. I'll definitely be happy for Dex if he goes somewhere else because he deserves that money. He deserves to get paid. And, the you go, we go mantra that the Cubs instilled in him and the rest of this team definitely had a big impact on this World Series run. I do see a team giving him a 5-year deal for sure. I've already heard some mumblings about Cardinals fans wanting Dexter Fowler. I don't know the truth to those rumors. No one really does at this point. It's still so early. But I'll be happy for Dex wherever he goes. I'm also in the camp. I'd love to see him back, but if it doesn't make sense for the Cubs moving forward, then I'm going to trust Theo and Jed and the other executives to make the right choice. You also have Alberto Mora out there who could platoon in center field some of the time, Hayward and right. Then you have Zobrist, Schwarber in that other outfield spots with Soler too. Not sure if he'll get dealt or anyone else will get dealt, but you have options. Maybe not the best options, but you have some good options.
Yeah, I think there's no question. I mean, that's the thing I come back to a lot, and a lot of it revolves around Javy Baez because if he actually plays well at second, I don't think that they're going to move him off of second for Zobrist, even though that was, and I don't know if everyone's aware, I mean, that was a big part of coming to Chicago, that he wanted to play second base and he wanted to have a guaranteed position, not just guaranteed starting because he'll start no matter what, but guaranteed one position every day. But if Baez does stick at second, Zobrist in left and or right, then you have Soler, Schwarber, Hayward, and Omora for the last 2 outfield spots. And if you can't find 2 outfielders to work on any one day out of those 4, then I think we have completely different problems that Dexter Fowler wouldn't solve anyway. So I like the Cubs outfield as is for next year, with or without Baez being the guy that we know he can be. But if he is, and I believe in him, then I think the Cubs will be fine without Fowler. They have plenty of offense. Schwarber is going to play a lot more, and he is a patient guy. He's also a high contact hitter. He'll replace the offensive production of Fowler. And, if Hayward and Almora play a lot better defense, I mean, they'll replace the defensive value. So I think the Cubs will be set in the outfield. I don't think they're going to bring him back, and I think the money could be better used elsewhere probably.
Yeah, you mentioned Schwarber. I think he's definitely a guy you could put in that 2 hole, like we saw in some of the postseason. Joe Madden used him for World Series games in that 2 slot. I mean, he hits to all fields. He's just a professional hitter. So you can move him up in the lineup, and he would do just fine. His defense is the real question. I think Baez will stay at second base, just judging by his postseason run. I think Madden has complete faith in him, and Zobrist showed that he was capable in the outfield. So we got to think someone's going to be moved this offseason. You kind of have a log jam in the outfield. Do you have any idea who would possibly get moved?
So, no. I don't. I definitely don't know. Obviously, I don't think there's many people that can say they do, but obviously some people have more information than others. But what I can say is that the most likely candidate, just based purely on position and everything, is the guy that everyone knows. It would be Jorge Soler. That said, I'm not eager to trade him. It's hard. It's been almost, I want to say 5 years now, maybe 4, of him dealing with significant injuries throughout the season, including his time in the minors. People tend to forget that. They go, oh, it's only his first got brought up in 2014, was injured through 2015, was injured in 2016, but that's only his first 2 years. Well, he actually missed a lot of time in 2014, 2013 as well. And although the injuries have moved from different spots on his body, so it's not like it's necessarily one chronic injury, there has been some repeating problems with his hamstrings and his legs. So it is fair to question whether the injury thing is just always going to be a part of the calculus with Soler. And if it is, well, then no matter what his ceiling is, that's still something that's going to hold him back. Just like an insanely high strikeout rate would hold back Javy Baez. Injuries, it's a real variable. That said, it might be one of the most clench-worthy trades because you're giving up a guy that we've seen. I mean, this year especially, he came back, and every time he came back, he produced almost immediately. It seems very likely that he's going to be a perfectly fine major league hitter. He's going to hit major league pitching above average, and he's going to hit for power. He'll hit for average. He'll get on base. So you're giving up a known quantity on the offensive side. Defense, obviously, I don't know if you recall, but right before his second injury this year, he started to look really, really improved in left field. He started to make a couple catches against the wall, and it was like, whoa, what's going on? And that was like a week before he got hurt. So that was pretty disappointing because he started to make strides in all these different ways. But he's definitely the most likely candidate just given the Cubs' other outfield options. But I still would prefer not to trade him at all unless, of course, the return is that young, elusive, young, cost-controlled, top-of-the-rotation starting pitcher that, to be perfectly honest, doesn't really exist right now. Not only is the price for those guys exorbitantly high, a lot of the biggest options, Sonny Gray, Chris Archer, had terrible seasons in 2016, and that doesn't mean I expect them to have terrible seasons next year. But what it does mean is that the teams that own them aren't going to be willing to sell low on them because they're all 1 year removed from Cy Young caliber seasons. So it's going to be really hard to price someone away, and it's going to be tough to give up the level of value in terms of assets and players to get back the value that you actually want. Other than that, no, I think Baez could have been a potential trade candidate, but I think not because of how well he's played, but because of how much Joe Maddon seems to appreciate his particular skill set. I don't think he's going anywhere. Obviously, no one is going near Chris Bryant or Addison Russell. Kyle Schwarber seems to be a personal favorite of the front office. Having him in the draft room while he was injured it's not common. It might not be something people are familiar with, but that was the case throughout the year. He was helping out the front office, doing advanced scouting, and that's not a thing that a lot of players tend to do. So he's not going anywhere no matter what. And again, not just based on his performance or production, but the way the front office thinks about him in particular. And there's not many other options besides that. I think Wilson Contreras is your nominal starting catcher. Jason Hayward is in the second year of a potentially 8-year-long contract. He's not getting traded. And you don't trade Kyle Hendricks, John Lester, and Jake Arrieta's got 1 year left, and it's supposed to be a competitive one for the Cubs. So this might be the type of year where if there's a trade, it's going to be a minor league guy. But we have to remember we traded our number one chip for Aroldis Chapman halfway through the season, and no complaints here because the Cubs ended up winning. But your next piece you're looking to give up is Eloy Jimenez, and he's far and away. Yeah, he's shaking his head now. No question. And he's so much better than the second best prospect, which is probably Ian Happ or Jeimer Candelario, that I don't think you give him up. I don't think he gets traded.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I do not want to give up Eloy. Definitely not. But with Soler, I think at this point his value is pretty low, and I think that can only get higher from this point moving forward. So it'd probably be wise to hold on to him for a little bit, see what you could maybe get at the trade deadline next year if you're looking to move him at all. But but he didn't play a whole lot in the postseason. Didn't play a whole lot in the World Series. I don't think he even played in the World Series, but he might have. But his value is pretty low right now. So you want to boost that value up if you are going to make a deal with him involved.